Okay, so my name is Brian, and I'm a 12-year veteran computer repair guy, and I'm going to show you how to dismantle just about any laptop. The first things that I'm going to show you is this right here. This is really important. This is a bin that I get. Walmart has these. You know, they're just for like storing whatever, fishing tackle or something. And then I use my label maker, and I created little bins for each set of screws that I have. This keeps me organized when I go to reassemble. So as I'm disassembling, I just put them in here, and this is my tray here, so you can kind of see exactly what I got going on. So I have that to my left. I have a couple of other special tools that I use. These are called black sticks. These are used by Apple Corporation or whatever. You can buy them online. Just type in black stick, or there's another term for it. I don't know what it is. This little guy, this is like a dental tool almost. You can get these at any hardware store for a couple bucks in the dollar bin. A pair of pliers is good to have, and this is the tool you're going to use the most. A tiny, like 3.5 millimeter Phillips screwdriver with a magnetic tip, and the magnetic tip is important. If you buy one of these and it's not magnetic, you can go and find a magnet somewhere and just drag the screwdriver over the magnet in one direction, and what that does is that magnetizes the metal, and this is really important. So without a magnetized tip, it's going to take you a lot longer, so it's really important that you do that. And a lot of people say, well, don't have a magnet near a computer because it'll damage it. This is so lightly magnetized, it's not going to do any damage at all. Alright, so first step is, this is an HP Pavilion DV6000. Pretty common laptop out there, and this one has a bad motherboard. So we're going to go ahead and take it apart, pull the motherboard, get the part number, and order a new one for the client. First step: disconnect any power, pull the battery. Very simple, and we're going to get started. The bottom panel here is needs to come off. Any bottom panels, all of them need to come off completely. And pull these off. Set these aside. Here's another one for the hard drive. That off, set it aside, and we can go ahead and start reviewing the screws that we have. This machine looks like it's been worked on before. I can tell that because the person who did the work put the screws back in the wrong spot, and there's different colors of screws in here. Well, that's not very good. The hard drive just pulled up. If you saw how I did that, you just pull this plastic tab up, just pop it right straight up, and that came out. Not all of them will do that. Some of them have screws, but that one was pretty simple. Now I'm going to get into my black sticks. I'm going to use the tips, the pointed tips, and I'm going to pull apart my RAM chips, the springs that hold the RAM chips in. I'm going to slide those out, and if you can see, they just pop right out. Once you manipulate these springs right here, they pop up and they slide right out. Take those out. We're going to unplug the Wi-Fi cables. And you can see this is a non-marring tool, so it's not going to scratch anything, and it's not going to, dent the screws or scrape any solder or anything like that. It's really important. And I'm going to pull the Wi-Fi card out, and here's my first screw. And you can see it's sticking to my screwdriver there. That's pretty important. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set that in the appropriate spot in my bin and pull the chip. Okay, so now we're doing this in a fairly organized fashion. The next step I like to take is to remove all the screws on the bottom of the computer. I have a bin in my labeled in my little screw bin there called bottom panel. So every screw on this bottom panel, again, look at how easy that came out, that magnetized tip. Every screw goes in the bottom panel bin. So we go ahead, pull it out. There it is, bottom panel. Pull it out, bottom panel. Pull it out, make sure, bottom panel. There's another one here, bottom panel. I kind of go in a systematic way, try to do this properly. Bottom panel. Bottom panel. Bottom panel. Here's another one in this corner. Pull these out, pull them up. Magnetized tip, totally helpful, because I'm not having to tip my laptop over and try to bang the screws out of the bottom of it. and then break something else in the process, because that's what you'll do if you start tapping on that, and then you'll lose screws and you won't know where they go. If you do it this way, it's really easy. And then when you go to reassemble it, you just dip your screwdriver into the bin and they stick to it, and then you can stick them right down in. Saves you hours upon hours of time if you're going to do this for a living, or if you're just doing it for, you know, your personal, you know, laptop, you're going to be fixing it. It's like, it just makes sense to do this. Okay, so now I've got all those out. Here's one, and it's labeled with a little symbol that looks like a keyboard, but it's the same size as the bottom panel screw, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. There's one here labeled as a CD-ROM. Here it's got a little round signal on there. That's the CD screw there. And I have a bin called CD. And once that's out, I can just slide the CD-ROM right straight out. And that's good. And now we've got a couple of screws here in the CD tray right here. So I'm going to pull those out. Remember, I'm doing a full dismantle on this laptop. Those go in the CD bin as well. Okay, in the little container here, you can see I got CD, I got hinges, interior bottom, HD, which stands for hard drive, battery tray, interior bottom, under keyboard, bottom panel, hinges, and CD. So those are all the labels, and you're going to have screws that are kind of going to end up in a weird spot anyway, but that's a majority of the ones that, you know, the bin is for. Next is going to be the battery tray. I see I've got 3 screws right here. Looks like they put a bottom panel screw in the battery tray. If they'd used my method, they wouldn't have done that. So we're going to go ahead and find, this is a proper battery tray screw. So we're going to put it in the battery tray bin, battery tray, and we're going to just double check to make sure we have pulled every screw that we can see on this bottom panel. Now there's a couple of screws down in here that look like they might want to come out at some point, but I'm not going to do those just yet. And there's one here on the underside. We're going to pull that one. It's a very short and small screw, and it went underneath the hard drive. I will put this in the hard drive bin so I won't forget where it went. Okay, so now we've gotten that far. We've got our Wi-Fi antenna wires here. We have checked to make sure that all the screws are out. We're going to flip the laptop back over. We're going to open up the laptop, and the next step is to take our black stick, and we are going to try to pop this top panel off. See how easy that came up, and I didn't scratch it? That's pretty important, but you want to be very, very careful with these HPs, because you're going to find that they're plugged in with these little wires right down in here, and they've got, because they got those quick key buttons, you know, you don't want to ruin those. So we're going to go ahead and pull this open and get out these little wires here. Okay, there's one, and here's another one. And again, I'm using the black stick. I'm not using a screwdriver because I'm going to damage things if I do that. And then this guy right here needs to come out. I'm using 2 black sticks, pointed tips. I'm going to pop that out. Boom. I've got my top panel. Almost every laptop is assembled the same way in this configuration. Next step, we're going to remove the keyboard. And let's see if this one is, how is this one fixed? We may have a couple of screws that we missed or something here. Oh, I did. I missed 2 screws right here. They were hiding right here, and they're labeled with keyboard, but they're inside the battery tray. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put them in the battery tray bin. Okay, and so if you start to tug on something and it doesn't come up, you'll know that you've missed a screw or 2, and I did. And as you can see, now the keyboard comes right up. Here's the other thing you want to be really sensitive with. You want to be sensitive with this battery, or the cables, the ribbon cables that hold for the keyboard and such. Those will snap, and they're expensive. Actually, you have to replace the whole keyboard if you do that, so don't do that. Okay, so now we're going to try to pull this top panel off, and I noticed that the wires for the antenna for the Wi-Fi are threaded through this top panel, and then they go up into the LCD screen right up in here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull those out, and because we obviously won't be able to get that top panel off without taking that off. And then I've got a couple of screws here. I've got one here. This one's going to go in the under keyboard bin. So I've got an under keyboard bin. Goes right there. And also these ribbon cables right here need to come out as well, because they will break if I'm not careful. So we're just going to pull those out. And sometimes, like if you're doing this and you don't feel comfortable pulling this stuff all apart like this, initially when I started doing this kind of work, I would take a picture with my camera or a phone or something, so that I could remember where all of this stuff went, before, and then that's very helpful, because then you can refer back to it. Here's the other thing is the trackpad ribbon cable needs to pop out, because I'm going to pull this whole top panel off, and that's all kind of in the same piece there. And then this right here, I don't know if you can see this, but this right here is your LCD cable, and they give you a nice little handy tug ribbon there so you can pull on it. Don't pull on the actual cable. You want to pull on the tougher part of the tug pull there. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and see if we've gotten enough to pop all this top panel off. It feels like we do, but then you're feeling around and it feels like maybe there's another screw somewhere around in this area that is still connected. So we're going to go ahead and flip this over, and we're going to look around, and yeah, there's a screw right here, the one that we said we might have to remove. It looks like we're going to have to remove it. I don't know if that's the guy, but we're going to try. And this is down in the area where the Wi-Fi was, so we're going to go ahead and put that in the HD bin just for now, and then we're going to just double check, make sure that we don't have any other screws, all these other screws here, anything, I don't see anything. Alright, so now we're going to go back to this top panel. Gonna see if we can get it to pop off. I've done a few of these HPs where there's always one little piece that doesn't want to give up the ghost, and you kind of have to fiddle with it. It's not an exact dismantling is always not exact. Sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. So you don't want to tug on anything too hard. And I'm still getting the sense that there's something underneath this holding in under this trackpad. So I'm going to go ahead and try to isolate where that is. Oh, alright, I see it. In this laptop, these screw heads right here, the ones that hold in the Wi-Fi card, and if this model had a Bluetooth, those little screws are holding this motherboard in and the top panel on. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my handy dandy little pliers here, and I'm just going to loosen those up until I can get my fingers in there and unloosen them. There we go. So they don't look like screws, but in fact they are. Okay, so we're going to take those out. We're going to put those in the CD bin. Take that out. And just pull this out. And hopefully that will give us the much needed relief. Pull this up and we'll know right away. There was a couple more under there. But I'm gonna, yep, that was it. Okay. So now we've got this coming off, And it looks like in order to get this off, we're going to need to pull the LCD hinges as well. So this is really going to be a full dismantle. So I've got a hinge bin. There's one screw there. And here's another one. And notice how the magnet comes in really handy. Alright, so now we got our LCD, whole LCD panel off. And now we can hopefully get this off. This whole panel here looks like this plastic piece just unsnaps. There's that one. And this one's got one more little screw holding it in. And you know, this might look intimidating, and it is a little bit, you know, initially, but once you've done it 100 and some odd times, the intimidation tends to fade. Alright, so now we've got our whole top panel off, and now we can see our motherboard. So we're getting deeper and deeper into this laptop. We're organized, right? We've got our screws here. We're all set. So in this particular model, I need to get this motherboard off so I can get the part number. And it's possible that the part number is here, or it's possible that's on the underside. So I do have to pull the whole dang thing, unfortunately. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull these ribbon cables. And those ribbon cables were for the quick launch buttons and the power button. So we got to remember that. They're identical though, so that's good. And alright, so we've got all this up. And I'm just going to kind of do a tug test and see where we need to pull any further screws. Looks like I have to pull the expansion bay out to get the motherboard out. It's pretty common. I'm going to go ahead and pull those screws, and that's going to go in the interior bottom bin because we are in the interior of the laptop and it is the bottom of the interior. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then there's two more screws here. These HPs. Some of these are not actually this difficult to pull apart. This one is pretty difficult. I wouldn't say difficult, I'd say just time consuming. Alright, expansion bay unplugs, got that out. And now we're getting there. So, the fan is there. Just want to make sure we don't have anything kind of holding us in. And it's possible, you gotta kind of tweak this just a little bit to get this out. There we go. And now we got some cables hanging us up. We've got this guy here. Pull him out. And this little guy here, going to pull him out. Those are most likely one is for power and the other one's for USB port that's on that side. These are that other cable I just popped off is for the audio jacks in the front. Alright, so now I've got my motherboard out. This is a full disassemble of this laptop, and we did it in a relatively short amount of time. Thanks for watching, and again, my name is Brian, and please subscribe if you can to my feed. Thanks.